Hi there, guys. It's Miss Andrews here. Okay, so I hope you guys have started the credit card section, looked through kind of the previous note pack. So we're continuing on with talking about credit cards. I'm going to talk a little bit about just the different scenarios that people might put themselves in and with paying off credit cards, and we'll talk about credit card statements as well. So with a credit card, it's important that you realize it's not accessing your bank accounts. This is like borrowing money from the bank. So when you use your credit card, you're essentially, taking out a loan from the bank and with the agreement that you'll pay it back. Now, depending on how you pay it back, that credit card can be very beneficial for you or it can be very costly. So let's talk about scenario 1. If you pay back the entire balance owing. All right, so let's say, credit card statements are about a month at a time. So when you use your credit card, you actually get a grace period, typically 21 days, that you're allowed to have borrowed that money and pay it back at the end of that grace period. If you pay all of the money that you spend back within that grace period, you fully avoid paying any interest, penalties, or fees. So that means you are able to spend that money, borrow it from the bank, and it doesn't actually cost you anything additional. This means you're only paying exactly what you spent. So this is the only correct way to use a credit card. You spend money for the month, you keep track of when you have to pay it back, and you pay it back in full. If you don't do this, then it starts being very costly and you start owing interest. So it is important to realize that it's not a debit card, but if you do pay it back in full every month, you can avoid any, fees and interest. And then you can actually use your credit card to potentially gain you credit score, credit history, and you might even get some perks like cash back or travel rewards. So you might be thinking then, if I pay my balance in full every month, and everybody does this, how do credit card companies make money? So these are businesses. They are trying to be there for a profit. The top 4 kind of credit card companies in Canada are going to be Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover. Now, there's kind of 2 streams that they are able to actually make money. First is just your interest and fees from users. So a lot of people don't use their credit card properly and they do carry over interest each month. The other way they actually make money is from retailers. So credit card companies will charge the retailers that allow them a fee, an interchange fee. They're essentially saying to, let's say, the company, the business, so they're saying, hey, Walmart, you can use our credit card service. You can allow your customers to pay with credit card, but we're going to charge you a fee for that. The reason they do that is because consumers nowadays like to use credit cards. They're convenient. They offer, rewards, things like that. So if customers want to use them, it's in the advantage for businesses to allow that service. But then they actually owe a fee to Visa or whatever credit card company it is. That interchange fee can be a flat rate or it could be a percentage. So some businesses will actually not allow the use of credit cards for this reason, because that interchange fee might be too high for them and they just can't afford taking that loss of profit. Okay, so that was just a bit of a fact. All right, so scenario 1 is the best case. You pay off your full balance. Let's say you pay the minimum. All right, your credit cards is actually, I don't know if it's the same for everybody. When I go to pay off my credit card, the default payment option is to pay the minimum. They're trying to kind of get you to pay the minimum because that's how they make the most money. So your minimum payment is going to be much less than your full balance. So this might be deceiving. You think, oh, well, if I just pay the minimum, I'm good to go. But what you may not realize is that if you're only paying the minimum, you are then carrying forward a balance that you then owe interest on. So now you're subject to your interest charges. That's where your APR is going to come into. So it might be around between 17 to 22% APR. And that's going to be compounding daily on your balance. So your minimum payment typically is going to be around 3% of your balance or sometimes it's a fixed amount of $10. Never pay just the minimum, okay? Unless you are in a super, super, super tight bind, but then you need to get yourself out of that quickly, because you will just be setting yourself up for kind of credit overload and disaster in your future. So just like I told you, never take out a payday loan, never pay just the minimum. Okay, you always are looking to pay for what is called the closing balance, or in some cases it's called the last statement balance. So I want to just show you here what it can do, the amount it'll cost you if you pay just the minimum. So let's walk ourselves through a scenario. You buy a new laptop on your credit card for $1,500. Money's tight and it appears much cheaper to just pay the minimum balance. So you do that. Your APR is 17% and your credit card minimum is 3% or $10, whichever is greater. So I want to show you how long it would take you to actually pay off that purchase if you just continually kept paying the minimum, and how much interest you would then have paid. So there's lots of online calculators. I'm going to show you one here. Okay, so what I've done is I inputted that information. If we carried a $1,500 credit card balance and my interest rate was 17%, and option A says if I paid $10 or my monthly percentage of 3%, whichever is greater, which is often a common agreement, what will that cost me? So I'm scrolling down here to option A. So we're looking here. If that was the case, if I made only the minimum payment each month, now know that you can do that. You won't lose your credit card. You're allowed to just pay the minimum, but it's going to be extremely costly. So if you just kept doing that, it would take you 11 years and 8 months. That's 140 months to pay off that laptop. Okay, you'd probably need 3 more laptops by the time 11 years went by. Your original balance is $1,500. Obviously, you have to pay back that original loan. You will have to also pay $1,164.83 of interest. So in total, that $1,500 balance that you carried forward, that you thought it would be cheaper to just pay the minimum, will cost you $2,664.83. Okay, so it is not cheaper to pay the minimum in the long run. It may appear like a shorter sum each month, but it is a very bad financial decision. So that's what I wanted to just show you there. So it is never cheaper to just pay the minimum, even though your credit card company is trying to make you think it is. All right, scenario 3. What if you just skip your bill payment? This is obviously, not a good scenario. So some people don't realize, again, that credit card is not free money. Okay, you have to pay it back. So some people think, I just spent all this money, I went shopping, but I don't actually have enough money to pay it back. Can't even pay the minimum, so you decide not to pay your bill at all. Now let's talk about the consequences then. One consequence is your credit card could be canceled. All right, if you're not paying it back, they can just cancel your credit card. Your credit score is going to be greatly affected. So we're going to talk about how important it is to have a good credit score and how to build a good credit score. And missing payments is really bad, okay? Your interest rate, your APR can increase as well. So if you miss a payment, they can actually decide to increase your APR, and that's going to, in the future cost you more money. You could also lose any sort of incentives on your credit card. So maybe you have cash back incentives or travel rewards, and they could cut that off. Okay, so we've talked about paying your balance in full. That is always the only scenario you should be using a credit card. Minimum balance, it's going to keep you in good standing with your credit card company, but it's going to cost you a lot of money. If you don't pay your bill or you miss a payment, this is not going to keep you in good standing. It's going to affect your credit score and also cost you a lot of money. Okay, so let's talk about a couple things. Which term refers to the amount of time you have between when the bill cycle ends and when you must pay your bill? Is this APR, closing balance, credit score, or grace period? Correct answer here is grace period. So this is what makes your credit card different than your debit card. All right, you have a grace period, often around roughly 21 days when the credit card statement ends until when you have to pay it back and still not pay any interest. Which term describes the amount you must pay in order to be considered up to date with your credit card payments? Interest, closing balance, minimum balance, or grace period. Again, that's going to be your closing balance. On my card, it's actually called the last statement balance. Because remember, with credit cards, you're actually paying because of the grace period, you're actually paying the previous month balance. You don't actually have to pay your current balance at that time. Okay, it's actually the previous month. All right, I'm going to pause here and this video, and I'm going to then go into credit card statements.